Welcome to Test Room, your go-to hub for professional knowledge sharing.
In this video, we will deep dive into automating API testing using robot framework. We will try to address all the HTTP methods like get, post, put, patch, delete, and head and demonstrate how to validate the responses effectively. Before we start automating the API testing, let us go and check the keyword documentation for the request library, which you can find under the official documentation of robot framework. Under resources, you have HTTP request library. This will take you to the GitHub page, and if you scroll down, there is the detailed keyword documentation. Now let us go to the usage section and try to see how to use the request library. Here they are showing a lot of examples how to use the different keywords of request libraries and how to perform the different HTTP operations like get, post, and things like that. And they also have given the how the structure of the response looks like. Throughout my tutorial, I will be using a very important keyword called as create session, and using which I will be performing the HTTP methods. It can be get or it can be put, post, etc. So create session takes the two mandatory parameters, which is called as an alias and the URL. Okay, these two are the important parameters. So the URL that we are passing here is the base URL of the resource that you want to access. Along with these two parameters, you can also pass an header or an body as well. So header and body has to be passed as an JSON as a JSON format. So once the session is created, we will use that session to perform the HTTP operation like get, put, and post. And you have to use a write keyword to perform a write operation. For a get, you have to use get on session. For a post, you have to use post on session. So while using the keyword, you may have to pass some additional information such as the path URL for the resource that you want to access. Along with that, you can also pass a body in case if you are using some kind of the certificates for the client and server transaction. You can also specify that, okay, while calling this particular keyword. After executing the get on session keyword, the server will send you the response back, and it will be stored in the variable called response.json. The response that you receive from a server is an object, and it has got a lot of attribute. Using these attributes, you can perform the verification. For example, here the operation is successful, and they're trying to verify the status message. Actually, along with the status code, you also receive the status message. For example, if the status code is 200, then the status message is okay. If the status code is 201, then the status message is created. If the status code is 404, then the status message is not found. So the status message is stored in the attribute called reason within the response object. So we will go and try to understand what are the attributes that are available in the JSON object that can be used for the verification. The response you receive after the successful transaction is an object, and it contains lot of attributes, right? For the get, put, post, delete, you will get a response from the server, and this response is an object and it contains these attributes. Okay, the first one is a content that contain the content of a response in terms of bytes. If you want to validate the content length, you can basically validate using the attribute called content. Then it also contains the cookies. Then it has elapsed time, that time elapsed in the execution of this particular the method. Then we have an encoding. Then we have an headers. If you want to validate the headers of your response, we can use the attribute called header. Then there is an history. Then the important one is a JSON, which basically carries the entire response body. Then we have an OK. It returns true if the status code is less than 400 and false if it is not. Generally, I don't use it. Then there is a reason. If you want to validate the status message, like here we are validating OK, right? For 200 it is OK, so you can use the reason. Then the very important thing is a status code. Okay, very important thing is a status code. So you can basically verify the status code of your operation. If it is successful, then it is 200. If it is if you are trying to use a post for creating a particular resource, then it should be 201. Okay, this is a very important one that we are going to use. The text will be the same as the JSON, but the entire thing will be in a text format. The body will be in a text format. Then it will finally it will also give you the URL, final URL location of your response. So mostly for the verification, in generally we will use the headers, JSONs, reasons, status code, and the text. In case if you are doing a performance testing, then the time elapsed will be one of the important parameters that we can consider. Throughout the session, I will be using this particular website for testing the APIs. In case time permits, I will also take some other example website. Let's go to PyCharm and use this request library and try to automate some tests. Okay, I am using the old project, which is an vehicle insurance application that I have used for performing the web testing using Selenium. I will be using the same project. Under the test cases, I have added a new test case called test case user management API.robot, where I will be doing the complete API testing for request response.in. Okay, and in case of init, if you have seen, the init is mainly used for suit setup and suit teardown. Here I have used the Selenium keywords, which is not relevant for the API testing. So what we can do is we can try to avoid executing them using some condition, right? So I will go to config and I will try to add an parameter called as testing type. So if it is a web, then we will use Selenium. If it is an API, then we will use API based setup. Okay, so currently I am using the API. So what I can do is I can take this, then I will go to the init. I will see what I can do is I will put an if condition. Then I will use testing type. If it is equal to web testing, then I will be putting Selenium related things here. Opening the URL, setting up the timeouts, and then I can put else condition. If it is an or, so let us check. Okay, and we can put a different if conditions. Okay, let us try to do with this. And if this is equals to API, let us give all in small words. I will put it as an API. So if it is an API, I will do the end here, and I will just put some statements. Currently I am not doing anything, just performing the suit setup for API testing. Okay, and in the tear down as well, if it is a web, then we will close all the browsers. Okay, otherwise we will not do anything. Otherwise, what happens if I try to run this test case? The keyword that it execute is the perform setup operation, and if I don't put it in a in the condition, then it will try to open a browser, which is not needed for the API testing. So we will avoid that. Okay, so our setup is now ready. Now what we can do, we can go to our test case and try to add some variables here, like under the variable section we can add a base URL, can give it as a base URL. The value for base URL is request response.in, and yeah, if there are many other parameters, then we try to use it. So for a time being, this is enough. And what we can do is we can validate get user details. We'll try to get one user detail. Okay, for this we will be using an API. For this we will use an API called get single user. Okay, so we'll use get single user, and for that first we have to create a session. The keyword for this is robot framework request library dot create a session, which takes two parameters. The alias, I will give it as some name, get session, or I can give the res underscore session, and the URL I will use the base URL. Okay, and in case if you want to construct an header, you can go and construct an header. So I have created an header value here using a dictionary which will have a content type, and the value for this content type is application JSON. That indicates that the request that I am sending is of type JSON. So by default it will take, there is no need to send it, but it is good to follow this practice. Okay, after that we will try to create a get on session, use the keyword get on session, and we'll try to perform the get operation, and then we'll try to do the get response equal to library dot get on session. This will, by default it will not take any mandatory parameters, but you will have to give a, so you will have to basically give the alias here, right? So you will have to give an alias and the path URL. The alias here is the session that we created earlier, and the path for the get operation is this one. So we will have to use from here to here. Okay, because we have to take a slash. That is why, because in the base URL we are not using a slash, otherwise we could have avoided this slash. Okay, so this is my path URL. Now you can also pass an header here along with the path URL. So let us go to the documentation of REST library dot get, and if I hover here, it gives me a list of parameters that I can pass while performing the get operations, which basically includes the data which we can use for sending the body. You can also send a body in data, or you can also send a body under JSON. We can send headers under headers. So let us take this as a key and let us pass our header dictionary under this. Okay, this is how we have to pass the header parameters. So I will remove this now. I am capturing the response of this get request under this variable. This variable is basically an object, and it has got lot of attributes. Okay, it has got lot of attributes, and the important one is the status code. the reason, and we can also use a JSON returns encoded content of a response. Okay, and if you want to perform any kind of verification on the body, you can use this. And if you want to print the content of your response, you can use the text variable. So what we can do is we can try to print this. Okay, and before that, the request library itself provides a keyword to validate, to verify the status code, that is called the status code should be. So here we are expecting 200. I can pass this, and otherwise I can also log the status code using the get response. Then the attribute for this is status code. I have to use the dot operator here, status code. Then I can use, instead of status code, I can use reason. Then I can use the text. And let us also try to use the JSON. JSON, something like this. Okay, let us go and execute this test. Test execution failed. Content type is JSON. Items. str has no attribute items. Content type equal to JSON. Sorry, yeah, I have done a mistake here. I am passing something as a nonsense here. I have to pass the, I am passing an, basically I was passing a string. It was expecting a dictionary, so that is why it was failed. Sorry, it was my mistake. Let us try to execute this. Yeah, it is passed now. Let us go and check the log, and I will try to open this with the Firefox. Okay, sorry, I am trying to open this with the Google Chrome. And if you see, the status code should be 200, the reason should be okay, response text is as a part of a data, and JSON is, again we got a JSON, right? JSON format. Okay, so yeah, basically we can use this JSON, and we will try to perform the verification. In case here, what we can do is we can verify whether the ID is true, or the first name as an Janet, last name as an Weaver. Let us try to add these verification steps as well. Let us go and understand how the response should look like for the API single user. Okay, when I execute a single user, the response code will be 200, and the response JSON body has got the two parts. The first part has a key called data, second part has a key called support. Under data, we will have the sub items like ID, email, first name, last name, and avatar. Now let us try to understand in robot framework how we can extract these items, right? Like ID, email, first name, and things like that. Now let us go to our PyCharm, and we now understand the structure of our response. Now we should do the verification. The first one, we will try to verify the ID is equal to 2 or not. Since ID is a number, we should use equal as number. The first part is the JSON. This is the entire JSON, under which we have a key called data, right? If you see, under which we have a key called data. So we can pass, for this dictionary, the key is data. Once you pass key as a data, it basically gives me all these items. Okay, so now if I want to extract ID, then again I have to pass ID as a key. So again I have to pass id as a key, then it will retrieve basically 2 and I am comparing it with 2. Similarly, should be as a string, and I can take this instead of id. I basically want to compare the email, and the email value is Janet Weaver at request-response.in. Okay, so this is how we can go and perform the verification, right? So let us try to execute this. Your test case is passed. Let us try to see the log. Go and see the log. Yeah, it's passed actually. So yes, it was comparing actually, right? It is comparing with 2 and it is comparing here email with the past email, what we are expecting. What we did here is first we created a session by passing the base URL. On this session we performed the get operation. For the get, we passed the additional path URL and the headers. So then we stored a response into a variable which is an object basically, and try to get the different attributes of this object and then perform the comparison actually. Now instead of trying to compare the item by item, I want to compare the entire JSON. Okay, I know for this particular the request, my response will be something like this. Okay, so what I have done, I have copied this request and I have taken only the data part because I am only interested in comparing the elements of a data. I am not interested in comparing the support like in URL and text. So what I have done, I have copied this response and I have created a file under the test data. If I go to PyCharm and if I open the user2.json, I have the JSON response that I am going to expect from these get operations. Okay, and when I try to execute the get command, I will get a response, and from the response I will compare the entire JSON structure, entire JSON body, omitting the support. Let us see how to do this. And for this, what we need to do, for this what I have done already is I have created an variable that gives me the path of the file. Okay, and during the runtime I will read this file, I will get the content, and this content will be in a string format. I will convert the string into the JSON, and thereafter I will try to compare them. Let us go and write a small piece of code for that. For a time being, I will comment these 2 lines, and what I will do is I will try to read the content of the file. So first I will try to have the complete file path dollar JSON file path, that is equals to, I am going to concatenate the strings with the separator equals to null, and then I have to concatenate with my current execution directory. Then I have this variable. I have to take this variable. This will give me the complete path for this JSON. I'll put it here. Then what I need to do, I have to use the operating system library and try to read a file, and for that I will store it in another variable, JSON file content, JSON file content that is equal to we have to use operating system dot get file. This will take the file path as an parameter. Now I have to convert this string into a JSON object, which we can do by using the Python function. For this I will be using a JSON the function which is called as JSON load. It is an Python function. I am calling it via the keyword evaluate. What I am passing to this is the my text content, right? My text content that is from this file. I will be passing the entire string, but while passing I have to pass it as a string. That is why I am enclosing them into the 3 quotes. Then I will passing that variable, and I am telling the Python to use the JSON library. This is to specify which library. This is to specify which function within that library. Now my object will be the JSON object, and I will try to log this object. Then what I need to do is I have to do the dictionary comparison. So I'll be using a keyword dictionary should be equal. It takes 2 parameters, dictionary 1 and dictionary 2. Dictionary 1 is my actual dictionary, and under which I have to have a I have a key called data. Then this is a second dictionary, that is my expected one, and this also has got a key called data. So what I will be doing, I will be comparing the data that is stored under the key called data. So that is will be up to here. Okay, now let us go and try to execute this. Our script is ready now. So what I have done, I have captured the expected response in a JSON file. Okay, then that JSON file I will be reading on a runtime using operating system get file. Before that I am constructing a path. Okay, that will be my execution directory slash then test data slash this file name. Okay, this is I have stored it as an variable. If you see, the value of this variable is test data slash user data to .json. Then I am reading a file. This file will be completely a text file. Then I am converting them into a JSON object using a Python function using a keyword called evaluate, and I will have to pass this as a string. Once this is there, then it will be this will be like a dictionary because it contains a key value pair. Then I will be checking whether the 2 dictionaries are same or not. Okay, for the past particular key. Okay, let us go and execute this. Yeah, now my test is passed. If you see, my test is passed. Okay, the comparison is successful. Let us go and check the log as well. Open with Chrome. Yeah, so if I see here, this is my JSON data, right? This is my JSON data from the file. Okay, this is what I am expecting. This is what I got actual. Okay, and it also has got another part because actual contains a support as well, right? Support as well, but my expected contains only data. That is why while comparing I am giving the key data, whatever the data that is under the key data I will be comparing it. So the dictionary comparison is successful. Okay, so this is how we can basically store. If you know the complete response, we can store them in a file and then we can do the dictionary comparison. Now let us see how to perform the post operation using robot framework. For the post operation I will be using the endpoint /API/user. Okay, as I already told, post operation creates a new resource. In order to create a new resource, we need to provide the details, right? Here it is going to create a new user, so we'll have to provide the new user details, and the body that this API expect is a JSON with two parameters, name and job. So we will try to pass this, and once the post operation is successful, we will be getting 201 as a response code, and the response message will be created, and the body of the response will contain the name, job, ID and created it. But the ID and the created it, these are the dynamic, so these are the dynamic variables, so we cannot compare with some value. So what we can do is we can check whether this response contain a field called ID and created art. That is what we can check basically. Okay, so in order to perform the automation on the post operation, I have already captured the body, the actual body that I want to pass, and the expected response. If I go to my robot framework, I have already created a test case for that. Along with that, I created a test data to perform the create user operation. The request should look like this. It is a JSON with name and job. Name I am passing as test troop, and the job is testing trainer. Okay, and I will be expecting a response as the same name and job. Along with that, I will also be receiving an ID and the created it. Okay, I have already created a test case to validate a create user. So it will follow the similar steps that we performed for a get. So first we will have to create a session based on the base URL, and then I will be creating an header which is basically in JSON, which has got a key and a value. Here I am passing content type as an application JSON. Then I have already, as I told, I have already created a body that I want to pass as part of the post request. So the body for this is stored in this particular variable. If I go to the basic data, and under which I have created a variable for the request file and a response file. Okay, the path for this is the under test data create user request.json and create user the response.json. So this is stored in a variable. I will be what I will be doing, I am reading that file, and then I am reading that file and I am converting then that into a JSON using the JSON loads function from Python. Okay, which is under the JSON library. Okay, then I will be firing the post request, and once the request is done, I will be collecting a response, and I will be checking whether the response should be equal to 201. Okay, as per the documentation, the response should be equal to 201, and response body should contain name, job, ID and created at. Okay, and the reason is she should be created, right? Reason should be created, and after that I will be copying the entire JSON body, enter the response body, okay, as a JSON body into the variable called actual response, and then I will be comparing that this response should contain, because it's equivalent to a dictionary, right? JSON is also a key value pair, so it will be like your robot framework dictionary, right? So I will be checking whether this response contain a key called ID and created it. Okay, once that is done, I will be removing them from the actual response, because if you see in my actual in my expected response that I basically stored is contains only the name and job. It doesn't contain ID and created it, because they are the dynamic parameters. I cannot use them for comparison. Okay, so in order to avoid that, I have not considered this, but in my verification here I will be checking whether the actual response contains ID and created it. Okay, this is because as per the documentation it should contain these two fields as well. Okay, so then I will be removing it, and then I will be reading the response that I stored in this file and converting into the JSON format, and then I will be comparing them. The dictionary should be equal or not. Okay, let us go and execute them step by step. Okay, I have put a breakpoint here. Now I have received the response, and response status code should be 201. It is passed, and also it should be the reason is created. Okay, this is also passed. Now I will be storing the response body into actual response. Let us go and see what actual response contain. Actual response contain created at the name, the job, and an ID. Okay, so now I will be checking whether the dictionary contains actual response dictionary contains ID or not. So this should pass, and this should also pass because it contains the two keys called ID and created at. Okay, now what I am doing, I am removing these two parameters, these two the keys from the dictionary. That means it will remove the key and value as well. So let us go and check what my actual dictionary contains. Now the actual response has modified, and it contains only job and the name, which is needed for the comparison. Okay, because I am having here name and job. Okay, so now I will be converting the the expected response into a JSON. This is done now, and if you see my expected response is job, testing trainer, and name as a test row. Now I am comparing whether the dictionary is equal or not. Okay, so I'll just run this from here. The execution is completed and your test case is passed. This is how we can basically perform the post operation using the robot framework. Okay, hope you understood this. Now let us try to understand how to perform the put operation. For the put operation, I will be taking the update record. So my endpoint URL will be /API/user/2, and the body is a JSON body that containing the two parameters, name and job, and the expected response code is 200. Response body should contain name, job, and updated it. So similarly, how I did for the post operation, I have captured the actual response and the request body, and put it into the file in my framework. And if I see under the test data, I have created two files, update user request.json, that contains the name as robot framework put and the job as test automation, and in the response it's the same. And as I told, updated art is also one of the field that will appear in the response, but it is a dynamic, so we cannot compare that, but at least we can check that the response has a field called or a key called updated art. Okay, let us go and check our script. The script is similar to the post. First I will be creating a session using the base URL, then I am adding the header as an key value pair, then I will be reading the request body and converting them into the JSON. Using this, I will be performing the put operation. While performing the put operation, I will be using the session that I already created. Then I will be passing the path URL. The path URL here is /API/user/2. That is what I am using. Passing a header and passing the body. And once this particular keyword is executed, I will be storing the response back into the response object. So the expected status code is 200 and the value is okay. Okay, and after that I will be storing the JSON body, the response JSON body, into the actual response, and then I will be comparing this JSON should contains a key called updated it. Okay, it should contain a field called updated it. Okay, and after that I will be removing the updated it because my expected JSON response does not contain that, because it is a dynamic value. Okay, and after that I will be reading the response file and converting them into JSON. Then I will be comparing the two dictionaries. It should be equal. Okay, now let us try to execute this. This is passed, this is passed, This is passed. Then I will check the content of the actual response. See, actual response is stored here. It has a job, it has a name, and it has updated it. Now I will be checking whether this dictionary contains updated it or not. Yes, it contains. Now I will be removing it. If I go and see here, it got removed from the actual response. Now I will be reading the expected response file, converting them into JSON, and then expected response also contain the job and name. Now I will be comparing the two dictionaries. The two JSONs are same or not. Test case is passed. This is how basically we can test the put operation. Now let us see how to perform the patch operation. The patch operation is a partial update. So we are not going to do the complete update. Rather, we are going to update the partial update. Okay. So here also I will be using the path URL as /API/user/2, but my response body is something different from this. Okay, what I have done is I have already captured the response body, and if I see update partial request is this one. I want to only change the I want to change only the job description. As a test automation engineer, I don't want to change the name. This is where the patch plays a role. Only the partial update. I don't want to change the name, but I want to change only the job field. Okay. So similarly, I will be expecting the response as only the changed field. Along with that, I will also receive the updated it. Okay, which is a dynamic. That is why I am not storing it. So let us go and understand the script. I have already created a script for updating the user partially. So I will be creating a session as usual using a base URL, and in the JSON body as a data I will be passing for the path URL /API/users2 as the content, the JSONized content from this request, only the job. Okay. Then I will be firing the patch, then I will be performing the patch operation. I will be storing the response. Then I will be checking the response code as 200 and the reason is okay. And then I will be setting a variable as an actual response which contains the body of the response that we received. And then I will be checking whether the response body contains a field called updated at. Once it is done, I will be removing the field updated at, so that so it only contains the job field. So we can compare these two JSONs. Then I will be reading the expected JSON file, comparing that into a JSON. Then I will be finally I will be comparing the two JSONs are matching or not. Okay, let us go and try to execute this. Okay, the patch operation is done now. It is success. Reason is okay. Actual response. If you see, the actual response contains two fields, job and updated it. Then I will be comparing whether it has got a key called updated it. They should pass. Then I will be removing it. If you see, it is removed. Now it has only one key, which is job. Then I will be reading, converting into JSON. Then I will be comparing two JSONs are matching or not. The test case is passed now. The test case is passed now. This is how basically we can perform the patch operation. Now let us see how delete user works. For the delete user, I will be using the delete API here, and it again uses /API/user/2 as an path URL, and we have a response as 204, but there is no response body. Okay, it's a very simple operation. We have already created a script to verify that. So what I have done is I have created a session using a base URL called as a delete session. Then I will be calling the delete on session by passing the session and the path URL and the header. Okay, once the operation is completed, I'll be storing a response should contain the status code as 204, and we will also see what is the reason it is giving. And I am also trying to print the body of the response, which basically it should be an empty object. Okay, let us go and try to execute this test case, and let us do a and if I see, yeah, so let us try to execute it completely because we cannot see log in the variable section. And well, let us go and see the execution. Try to open the log. Yeah, see, yeah, this is basically failed here, right? Yeah, that is because the body is empty, so we should not basically use this keyword. Let us go and remove that from our test. Okay, let's try to execute now. Test should pass now, and if we go and go to the log, test is passed. And let us try to see the details here. It is 204. See, the reason is like no content. Reason is no content, and this is empty. It is not having any data. Okay, this is how basically we can perform the delete operation using the robot framework. Now let us go and check how the head operation works. Okay, head operation is similar to get operation, but there will not be any response body. Response will only carry the header. That is why I am only printing the headers here. So I will be performing the head operation on the URL /API/user/2, which is trying to get a detail of user the 2, but I will not be getting the response body. Rather than that, I will be getting response headers. Okay, let us go and execute this. Sorry, I'll be, yeah, I have executed the wrong one. Let us go and run this test. Yes, now if I go to here and refresh, test case is passed, and I'm trying to print the header information. You see a lot of the header data like content type, then connection, then yeah, so this is what basically we get as part of the header. Okay, hope you understood how the head operation works. So far we have covered different HTTP methods and how to automate the testing of these HTTP methods like get, post, put, patch, delete and head. Now we will try to understand how to introduce an authentication in part of API testing and how the authentication works in robot framework. Okay, so I will try to cover the two basic types of authentication. One is called as the basic authentication. Second one is the bearer token. Just for your information, Postman Echo is a platform that basically provides you set of API that we can use for freely use for testing. Okay, if you don't heard about Postman, Postman is one of the most widely used tool for both the manual and automated testing of APIs. Okay, and if you scroll down, we have something on authentication. Yeah, authentication method and basic authentication. Okay, using this particular URL you can perform the basic authentication. Okay, here we are using the base URL as postman echo-echo.com, and the path variable is basic authentication, and basically we'll have to perform the get operation, and this operation needs the username and password. Okay, the username is postman here, the password is password. Okay, let us try to perform the get operation in our PyCharm. Let us go to PyCharm. I already basically created an test case to validate the basic authentication. I will have to change some parameters here. I don't need to change some parameters here. Okay, so this is ready, so we can go and execute this. So, and this test case should fail now because we are not using any kind of authentication. We are not using the username and password. The let us go to the test log and see why this particular test case is failed. And if you see, the reason is 401. That means you are unauthorized to access this particular resource. In order to access this particular resource, you need to pass an username and password. So in the last tutorial, when I was explaining about basics of API, I also told you how to basically send a basic authorization in case of robot framework. Let us go and open the presentation on that, the PowerPoint on that. And when you're using the basic authentication, you will have to pass authorization as a key. Then the value should be basic. Then we have to give a space. Then base 64 encoded format of your username colon the password. Okay, this is how we need to pass the basic authentication. You need to use the basic authentication in case of robot framework. So you will have to pass header. You will have to pass the authorization in a header with the key as an authorization, the value as basic space the base 64 encoded value of your username colon password. Okay, let us go and create the authorization in this format and try to pass it to the header so that we will have the 200 OK successful operation. Okay, for that let us create two variables here. Before creating in header, let us try to add the authorization into header. So I will be using username. The value is set variable. The value for this is postman, right? The value is as per the documentation, it should be postman. Then I will have another variable called password. The value is set variable. Password. Okay, the value is password. Now we have we have a credential. We'll have to create another variable for credential. Which is equals to the set variable. The value is username colon password. Okay, so it is username colon password. I think this should be so I have done a mistake here. It should be username and it should be password. The username colon password is the credential. This is how it was explained here, username colon password. Now I will have to convert them into base 64 format. For that I will have to use the Python function which is called as an base 64.64 encode, and I will have to use this Python function using a keyword called evaluate. Okay, I have already created that. I will just copy paste from one of my previous exercises. So base 64 encoded is equal to, I think, credentials. So I am using it. So base 64 encoded is equal to evaluate then I will have to use a Python function which is called base64 dot base64 encode. Then I will have to pass the credential as a string. Then I have to encode the string into UTF-8. Once I receive that, once I receive the response from this base64 conversion, then I will have to convert them back into a string which is of type UTF-8. So there are two functions here. First one is base64 encoding of your credentials using UTF-8 format, and after that you will have to convert them back into a string, and the value that the conversion format should again be of type UTF-8, by using which you can basically convert the username and password into a base64 encoded format, which is a needed format to pass the authorization. So modules indicates that I will be using the module 64 of the Python. Okay, then I will have to create a header. The header key is authorization, and the value is basic, then space, then base64 encoded. Base64 encoded. Okay, this is stored in a header dictionary. Then I will be passing in header dictionary as part of the get call. Let me put a breakpoint here and see how the header value looks like, and let us go and try to execute this, and let us go to the variable section and see how does my header looks like. See, authorization is something like this. Okay, if you want to view completely, it is like basic, and this is the 64. Yeah, it's a 64 base 64 encoded format of your username and password. Okay, now let us try to execute the the get call, because so let us execute this. I think it is successful, and let us try to execute the complete one. Yeah, the test case is passed, and if I go to the log and see, the status code was 200. So it is basically executed successfully, and the header is this one. The body is the response body is authenticated true. So we can also print the body. So we'll also try to print the body, but the main thing here is without passing the username and password, it was giving us a 401 error. By passing the username and password as an authorization as part of the header, and the format is like authorization basic, then 64 encoded format of your username colon password. This is how you need to pass. So I have added a statement to print the JSON body, and let us try to execute this now. And if I go to my log and refresh the log, if I come down, then if I go to the log session, see, authenticated is true. This is what, so the response that what we get is authenticated equal to true. So basically we are successful in performing the basic authentication, right? Basic authentication. So you know how to perform the basic authentication. The another platform that allows you to test the REST APIs along with the authentication, basically the bearer token is the GitHub. GitHub, as you know, it is an popular the source code management system. It's a version control system, and it allows you to store and track the code repositories. Okay, and in order to work with the GitHub, you need to have an username and password. I have already logged in with my username and password. You can go to the tutorial how to create your account on GitHub. Once you have a valid credential and you are able to log in, then under settings, if you can go to the if you can go to settings, under user there is a settings, under the development tab, you can create something called a personal access token. Okay, basically you can go to the tokens classic and then you can create a token. Okay, so I will go and create the token here. So I'll do it in offline. It is just by clicking the create new tokens, it will provide you the token. This token is a little bit confidential because it should be used by the user who is logged into this particular account, right? I have logged in. This is my personal account. I have logged in using my username and password, and I can create a token and I can use this token whenever I try to perform any operation using the REST APIs of GitHub. GitHub provides lots of GitHub basically provides lot of REST APIs to perform the different kind of an operation, like uh, like committing your changes, then cloning your repos, then listing your repositories and things like that. Various operation in Git can be automated using these REST APIs. So I will offline I will go and create this token. My token is ready. I have stored my token in a notepad, and using this token I can perform lot of operations. Okay, and if we can go to Google and search Git API documentation, then there is a detailed documentation on how to use the GitHub REST APIs. For you can perform lot of operations like branches, check-in and things like that. I will be performing one simple operation where I am trying to list all the repositories under my name. If I go to my GitHub account, if I go to my GitHub account, I have a lot of repositories here. Okay, I have around 7 to 8 repositories here, and using these APIs I can list the repositories. Okay, and I have already opened the page where you can see the list repositories for a user, and the the complete URL for this is https://api.github.com. Okay, this is basically the base URL, and this is a path URL. Path URL takes users slash your username. My username is vs amanullah here, and slash repos. If I pass this along with the token authorization, you will have to pass as part of the header as an bearer, then space the token. If you come to my PowerPoint presentation, in case of bearer token, again you will have to pass the authorization as part of an header, like authorization, which is a key. The value is bearer space the token. Okay, that is what we have to pass. This is what he has also given. Let us go and use this. Let us go and use this in our PyCharm. My script is ready. What I am doing here is I am creating a session on my base URL, which is called api.github.com, and I took it from the documentation. Here it says https api.github.com, and this is my path variable. Path variable also includes the username. That is why I have stored my username in a variable, right? My username is vs amanullah, and if you see here, yeah, this is how I was logged in earlier. This is my username I have taken here and I have stored here, and then I am creating an authorization which is like a bearer, which should have a bearer. The key is authorization for the header. The key is an authorization. Then it should have a bearer. Then space. This is my personal access token. That is I created during this exercise. I created the access token for this, right? So using this access token, I can now perform the get operation. Okay. So and I will be using the path the path URL as /user/username/repos, and using which I will be making an get call. Now let us go and try to execute this. You see the operation is passed and it tried to get all my repos. I have around 7 to 8 repos. All of them are the private repos. This basically listed all my repos. So this is how basically we can perform the authentication using the request library within the robot framework. I have only shown you how to use the basic authentication as well as the bearer token, for both of which we'll have to pass them as part of the header with the key as an authorization. For the basic authentication, we should use a keyword as the key as an authorization and followed by the keyword basic, then the 64 encoded format of your username and password. For the bearer token, you can directly use your personal access token along with the keyword called bearer. First you have to give a bearer, then a space, and your personal access token. Okay, this is how we can basically use the authentication in case of robot framework. Hope you understood this concept. That brings us to the end of this video. In this session, we explored how to automate various HTTP methods using robot framework. We covered adding various verification points for status codes, status messages, and status body comparison using JSON. Additionally, we demonstrated how to store the request and response in test data files and effectively use them during the test. We also covered implementing basic and token based authentication for API testing. I hope you enjoyed learning with me. In case if you find this tutorial helpful, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching.